The story begins with a British environmental scientist named Adam Hitchens, who moves to Ireland with his wife Claire, their baby son Finn, and their dog Iggy. Their new home is located next to a forest that is about to be cleared, and Adam wants to collect samples for his research before that happens. While Claire starts fixing up the house, Adam heads into the forest with Finn and Iggy to explore the area. As he walks through the woods, Adam notices a dark, slimy substance covering the trunk of a tree. Curious, he scrapes off a sample for analysis. Moments later, he realizes that Iggy has wandered far away and refuses to respond when called. Adam follows the dog, and along the way, Finn's toy falls into a small stream. When he finally catches up with Iggy, he finds the dog barking at what appears to be an abandoned structure deep in the forest. The building consists of crumbling walls with no roof, while weeds have grown through the scattered wooden debris, suggesting it has been abandoned for many years. In one corner lies the carcass of a dead animal, positioned in a strange and unsettling way. Adam cautiously approaches, puts on a pair of gloves, and examines the body with a magnifying glass. He discovers a long wound across the animal's back, covered in the same black, slimy substance he found on the tree. Meanwhile, a man named Colm Donnelly arrives at the Hitchens home with his son. The moment Claire sees his truck, she lets out an irritated sigh. This isn't his first visit, and she already knows exactly what's coming. Colm makes it clear that he disapproves of Adam's activities in the forest, insisting that he's trespassing on private property and putting both himself and his family in danger. Hoping to get rid of him, Claire promises that she'll convince Adam to visit him and discuss the matter properly. However, Colm refuses to leave, insisting that it has to happen that very day. After the unpleasant encounter finally ends, Claire walks back inside and is surprised to find that Adam has already returned through the back door. He's excited about the samples he collected and barely notices her frustration. He tells her he'll try to smooth things over with their annoying neighbor as soon as possible. Adam then examines the samples under a microscope. His curiosity grows as he watches one cell attack another, causing the second cell to gradually take on the characteristics of the first, as though it has become contaminated or infected. At the same time, Claire is putting Finn to bed when black slime suddenly begins dripping from the ceiling, landing directly on the baby's blanket. Alarmed, she calls Adam upstairs and tells him that the roof is leaking. Adam quickly checks the attic. He notices a stack of old cylinders but completely overlooks a corner of the wall where black, hair-like strands of slime are spreading. He returns and assures Claire that everything is fine, insisting it's probably just moisture. Still fascinated by his research, Adam shows Claire a picture of a parasitic fungus called cordyceps. He explains that it acts like a Trojan horse, invading an ant's body, taking complete control of it, and eventually leading it back to the colony, where it spreads its spores and infects the rest of the ants. Claire is disgusted by the subject, while Adam is clearly fascinated by fungi. Their conversation gradually turns into a romantic moment, but it's abruptly interrupted by Finn's cries coming through the baby monitor. As Claire heads toward the nursery, she suddenly hears the sound of breaking glass. At the same moment, Finn's crying grows louder and turns into terrified screams. She rushes upstairs and is startled when the bedroom door slams shut, but she manages to force it open and quickly picks up her baby. Adam notices that a lamp has been knocked over and the bedroom window has been shattered. He concludes that someone must have thrown something through the glass. He searches outside but finds no one, leading him to believe that Colm is responsible and is getting revenge because Adam never came to see him. A few minutes later, the police arrive, but they're of little help. They suggest that the broken window was probably caused by a stray bird or something similar. Claire tries to convince the officer to take the incident more seriously, explaining that the locals never welcomed her family. To her surprise, the officer doesn't seem particularly happy about their arrival either. The officer explains that many of the local residents believe in old superstitions. According to one of them, the forest belongs to mysterious creatures known as the Hollow, mythical beings similar to fairies and spirits. Adam rolls his eyes at the story and questions the officer's judgment, but the officer insists that he doesn't personally believe in such legends. Even so, he warns that the growing tension between the newcomers and the local community is enough to threaten the peace, especially when outsiders start interfering with things they don't understand. The officer also tells Adam about Colm Donnelly's daughter, Cara, who disappeared in the forest years ago and never came home. To this day, Colm firmly believes that the creatures of the forest abducted her. After the police leave, Adam decides to gather evidence against Colm because he doesn't believe the officer's explanation about the bird. While photographing the broken window from the backyard, he hears something moving among the bushes. Curious, he points his camera toward the sound and fires the flash. For a split second, he catches the silhouette of a strange creature with glowing eyes before it vanishes. The sight is so brief that Adam convinces himself it must have been his imagination. Still, he becomes even more concerned when Iggy begins growling and barking aggressively toward a small storage shed. Adam cautiously approaches and hears what sounds like a human voice coming from inside. He decides to investigate, only to discover that the shed is nothing more than a cluttered storage room filled with old junk. After Adam walks away, the shed door quietly swings open again without him noticing, and the faint sound of a crying infant can be heard. The next morning, Adam promises Claire that he'll talk to Colm after getting the broken window repaired. Claire stays home with Iggy while Adam takes baby Finn into town. As she cleans the nursery, Claire discovers that the black slime has spread across one of the bed sheets, forming a horrifying fungus-like shape. Meanwhile, Iggy stares toward the bushes once again before wandering into the forest by himself. Adam arrives in town under the curious gaze of the locals and takes the broken window to Thomas, the town's glazier. Thomas seems to know exactly what Adam does for a living and, without any introduction, begins talking about supernatural creatures. According to Thomas, the so-called bird that struck the window wasn't a bird at all. It was a manifestation of the Hollow, the same entity that invaded Adam's home just as it invaded the forest. Thomas agrees to repair the window but warns Adam that it won't do much good unless he also installs the proper metal reinforcement. At the same time, Colm and his son pay Claire an unexpected visit. She's startled to find him standing inside her house, visibly furious. He accuses her of ignoring his warnings and insists that he's not crazy, despite what she believes. Claire nearly bursts into tears when he reaches into his pocket, but instead of pulling out a weapon, he simply takes out an old book. He places it on the table without another word and quietly leaves. On his way home, Adam bends down to pick up a toy that has fallen inside the car. He takes his eyes off the road for only a moment, nearly hitting Colm as he walks back toward his farm. Fortunately, Adam slams on the brakes just in time. The two men exchange cold, threatening stares before Adam continues driving. As he enters the stretch of road that cuts through the forest, the cassette player suddenly begins malfunctioning. The tape jams inside the stereo, and moments later the engine starts acting up as well. The car swerves wildly from side to side, and the steering wheel becomes completely unresponsive until Adam finally slams on the brakes. The newly repaired window shatters from the impact, and when the car comes to a stop, the engine refuses to restart. Adam opens the hood and is horrified to find it completely covered in the same black slime. He walks to the back of the car to grab some tools, but something suddenly shoves him and slams the hood shut with tremendous force. By nightfall, Adam regains consciousness and discovers that he's trapped inside the trunk of his own car. He can hear baby Finn crying alone in the back seat. Suddenly, something begins pounding on the vehicle from every direction, violently rocking it back and forth. Massive shadowy figures race past the windows, while the doors rattle as if something is desperately trying to break inside. Terrified, Adam tears through part of the rear seat, pulls Finn toward him, and climbs out of the car carrying a flashlight. Whatever attacked them appears to be gone, but the vehicle is now covered in deep claw marks. Hearing Iggy's barking in the distance, Adam follows the sound until he reaches the house. He tells Claire to call the police, still convinced that Colm is behind everything. Claire is shocked to see him carrying a shotgun, but Adam assures her it's only for protection. As they head upstairs, the power suddenly goes out, and several windows throughout the house shatter at the same time. Adam leaves Claire and Finn inside the bedroom, telling her to lock the door securely, then heads downstairs with the shotgun. He notices flashes of light coming from one of the rooms. Slowly opening the door, he's suddenly startled by a piercing scream and immediately fires his weapon. The gunshot terrifies Claire upstairs, but Adam quickly realizes that the room is empty. The scream was nothing more than the creaking of the door, and the flashes were coming from his own camera. Even so, it's obvious that someone, or something, has broken into the house. Everything has been turned completely upside down. Furious, Adam curses Colm and mocks the ridiculous old book he gave Claire. She convinces him that, whether Colm is right or wrong, the safest thing they can do is leave immediately. After hurriedly packing their belongings, they begin searching for Iggy. Adam finds the dog inside the shed with something bloody in its mouth, and one of its eyes has turned a terrifying shade of red. Still blaming Colm for everything that's happened, Adam clips the leash onto Iggy's collar and leads his family back to where he left the car. The moment they arrive, however, Iggy suddenly goes berserk, breaks free from the leash, and runs into the forest. Seconds later, the couple hears his barking transform into cries of agony, followed by a horrifying ripping sound, as though something is tearing him apart. Realizing they have to escape, Adam tries to repair the engine, only to discover that it's now buried beneath a thick layer of sticky web-like slime. At that exact moment, Claire looks over her shoulder and freezes in terror. Dozens of creatures are crawling out of the forest, racing straight toward them. Panicking, she slams her foot on the gas pedal, and the engine finally roars to life. Adam quickly shuts the hood, but as Claire looks past him, she sees an entire line of savage creatures charging after them. Her scream alerts Adam, who jumps back into the car, and together they speed toward the highway. The creatures relentlessly pursue them, hurling thick globs of slime that smash through the rear windows. Then, without warning, what appears to be a zombie-like girl suddenly steps into the road. Claire loses control of the steering wheel, and the car veers off the road, tumbling down an embankment. With no other choice, they abandon the vehicle and run back to the house. Once inside, they catch their breath and finally accept the terrifying truth: the Hollow are real. As Adam peers through the peephole to make sure nothing has followed them, something suddenly strikes him directly in the eye. The front door begins shaking violently, and black slime starts oozing through the peephole. When the pounding finally stops, Adam cautiously approaches with a flashlight. He throws the door open and shines the beam directly at the horrifying creature outside. The moment the light hits it, the creature recoils and lets out a piercing shriek. Adam immediately realizes that these beings cannot tolerate light. Without wasting another second, he decides to turn on the backup generator to flood the house with light. To do that, however, he'll have to risk going back outside. He hides Claire and Finn in the attic, telling Claire to keep the attic door tightly locked, before making his way to the small storage shed. Once inside, he discovers that the black slime has spread everywhere, even covering the electrical panel completely. Meanwhile, Claire notices damp patches spreading across the attic at an unnatural speed, and the wooden beams begin cracking apart. She tries to warn Adam, but the baby monitor's signal can't reach him. Determined to protect her son, she braces herself against the attic door just as a slimy arm smashes through the wood. A claw gropes through the air, searching for her face, while more intruders climb onto the roof, punching dozens of holes through the shingles. In the small storage shed, Adam is suddenly overcome with intense pain, and his body begins trembling violently. He struggles to stay in control as the infection spreads through him. Just as the creature's claw is about to reach Claire's eye, Adam finally manages to start the generator. The instant the lights come on, every creature vanishes, leaving Claire safe once again. While grabbing one of the iron bars, Adam cuts his hand and notices black slime oozing from the wound. He returns to the house and realizes that the light itself has become painfully unbearable. Looking into the mirror, he's horrified to see the changes in his eye and realizes that he's been infected. He hides the truth from Claire, wraps a bandage around his eye, and asks her to help him install iron bars over the windows. Claire asks how he's so certain the bars will work, and she's puzzled by the fact that he refuses to touch them himself. A few moments later, she's startled when one of the creatures appears on the other side of the window, but she quickly notices that it truly can't cross the iron barrier. Adam explains that the generator won't keep running for long, so he hides Finn inside a wardrobe and leaves the baby monitor with him. Claire isn't comfortable with the idea, but reluctantly agrees that it may be the safest option. Adam then begins reading the old book Colm left behind and comes across a chapter describing something called the Changeling Child. At the same time, Claire grows increasingly anxious because she can no longer see her baby, and her suspicions about Adam continue to grow. She quietly walks toward the wardrobe, but the moment she opens it, she lets out a terrified scream. A creature snatches the baby and disappears into the slime-covered walls. The couple panics and follows Finn's cries through the house. Adam manages to corner the kidnapper in the attic while it's still holding the baby. Just as he's about to grab his son, another creature's claw bursts through the ceiling and slashes across his face. Adam stumbles backward, falls through the attic opening, and crashes to the floor while the creature escapes with Finn. Claire rushes outside and chases the monster into the forest, using the baby monitor to track its location. Meanwhile, Adam regains consciousness, bandages his injured leg, and struggles against the infection that's slowly taking over his body. As Claire searches, she spots Finn's blanket floating on the surface of a lake. She immediately dives into the water and emerges with the baby safely in her arms. The creatures remain hidden among the surrounding trees, yet none of them tries to stop her from leaving. When she returns to the house, she hesitates as Adam reaches out to hold the baby. Eventually, she decides to trust him and hands the child over. She instantly regrets that decision when Adam insists that the baby she's carrying isn't their real son. Claire remembers Adam's earlier explanation about the cordyceps fungus affecting the mind and tells him that the infection is clouding his judgment. But Adam refuses to back down, insisting that the infant is a changeling. He shoves Claire aside, threatens the baby, and presses a nail against the child's forehead. To Adam's eyes, the baby actually begins transforming. But when Claire strikes him across the back and snatches the baby away, the infant's face instantly returns to normal. Claire runs to the storage shed and locks herself inside while Adam follows close behind. Through the door, he desperately swears that the baby is evil and insists that the creatures would never return the real Finn so easily. His words almost make sense, but his voice begins changing rapidly. Through the cracks in the door, Claire watches horrifying transformations spread across his face. When Adam finally breaks down the door and enters, Claire shines a bright light directly at him, while holding a long sickle for protection. She realizes that he has become one of the Hollow. Moments later, Adam is struck by another wave of agonizing convulsions. Claire can't help but pity him as she watches fungal growths spreading beneath his skin. Suddenly, he grabs her leg with tremendous force. She pulls herself free, leaves him behind, and escapes with the camera. Adam has now reached an advanced stage of the transformation, but he briefly regains control of himself. Carrying a burning sickle, he follows Claire into the forest. As he passes the abandoned structure, he discovers that Iggy has also entered the final stage of the infection. The creatures slowly close in, but they recoil from the bright flames. After running for what feels like forever, Claire reaches a neighbor's house and pounds on the door, begging for help. The door opens to reveal Colm, aiming a shotgun directly at her. Terrified that she'll bring the creatures with her, he mercilessly refuses to let her inside and forces her away. Meanwhile, Adam makes his way through the ruined building, using his torch to keep the creatures at bay. There, he finds a little girl who has been completely transformed. He realizes she's Kara, Colm's missing daughter, and the baby she's holding is the real Finn. Adam approaches her cautiously. Kara opens her hand and shows him the pacifier that had fallen into the stream earlier, confirming that she's carrying the real child. He slowly moves closer, but Kara snarls at him angrily. Elsewhere, Claire loses her way in the forest, and uses the camera's flash to light her path while driving the creatures back. As she notices several of them lurking high in the trees, the camera begins beeping, warning her that the battery is almost dead. One of the monsters suddenly leaps in front of her, trapping her with no escape. She repeatedly fires the camera flash to keep them away, but in her panic she loses her footing and tumbles into a deep depression with no easy way out. The creatures move in closer, and the camera finally dies. Then she hears a familiar voice calling her name. She turns and sees Adam standing beside her, holding a baby. He tells her that this is the real Finn. Claire is horrified by Adam's condition and by the savage way he's fighting the other creatures. She's even more shaken when she realizes that both babies look exactly alike. Adam begs her to switch the babies. Then he continues battling every creature that approaches until a massive claw suddenly pierces straight through his back. Realizing there's no time left to decide, Claire places the baby she was carrying on the ground and takes the other one instead. Adam is still barely alive as the first rays of sunrise begin breaking through the trees. The very first beam of sunlight falls on the baby left behind. Adam watches anxiously, and a tear rolls down his face as he's proven right. The changeling baby begins burning under the sunlight, reverts to its true monstrous form, and finally crumbles into dust. Adam takes his final breath, while Claire safely returns home with her real son. Sometime later, the forest is finally cut down. In the film's closing scene, the logs being hauled away on logging trucks are covered in the same black slime, hinting that the nightmare is far from over. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel for more videos.